All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be working some abs. We're going to just run through it really quick here. We're just going to do a couple exercises here and there. First thing to start us off, we got our Roman chair leg raises. Okay, I'm about to do 15 of them. I suggest doing them about 3 sets, 15 reps. The goal that I'm going to try to do is point my toes while I'm lifting up my legs like a Roman chair. All right, we're going to get started here. All right, so when I'm doing those Roman chair leg raises, the biggest thing that I try to do is always point my toes. It's a little extra, but it helps keep me in place, at least my feet wise. Now, when we're doing that, you can do it at different types of setup. I choose to do it in terms of essentially like a dip kind of setup. We're on the dip machine / pull up machine, so I like getting it in that way. We're gonna move on to the next exercise, which is gonna be some flutter kicks. Okay. So what I like to do, I like to keep my hands below my butt so I have a little bit of a cushion. And what we're going to do, we're just going to keep our legs straight as we flutter those kicks. The biggest thing that I try to do is point those toes. Does it do a little extra? I don't know, but I like getting a little extra if I can. So I'm going to point those toes a little bit while we do it. I'm not going to do it for very long, right? I would suggest doing them on 30 seconds intervals when you're starting, and work yourself up to a minute. No really reason to go any more than that. But we want to make sure when we're doing those, again, keeping the core tight, legs straight, point those toes. Okay, here we go. We're going to start it up. Now, when I'm doing that, I really focus on. I am kind of keeping my back off the ground, but I would say if you are going to do this, try to keep that back on the ground. You want to keep that head up. I'm only doing that honestly just for aesthetics right now. But if I was to do it on a regular exercise, I would want that back on the ground. I also did feel comfortable there. It was almost like I was still engaged. So it's not that that's necessarily a bad thing. We just want to make sure that when we're doing that, we want to keep ourselves as tight and get the most out of this movement. And if anything prevents you from getting the most out of the movement, we don't really want that. So from now, I would just say, again, keep that back on the ground, looking straight up or forward, which is fine, and keeping those toes straight, fluttering those kicks. We don't want them too big either. When I'm doing these, I'm not trying to get them up all the way. I'm just trying to keep them a little bit off the ground, like almost like I'll touch my heels, come back up, touch my heels, come back up. Especially if you're trying to build this exercise, touching your heels on this is great. A lot of people, when they first start this exercise, don't necessarily have the core strength to keep themselves locked in, and they'll start to bring those legs up. And the biggest thing that you'll notice, especially when you're kind of starting this out, or if you're doing this for a long time, your back, your lower back especially, is going to start to arch a little bit. And we want to make sure that our back is kind of flat. But if your back does arch, the biggest thing that I would suggest you to do is adjust yourself. Take a second, adjust yourself, or you want to kind of keep your legs up to the point to where it doesn't start to bother you like that, where your back starts to arch. So even if it's less than an inch off the ground, then we're going to do small little inches. And I'll show you kind of a demonstration of that, right? So, you just want a little. Now, flutter kicks can range. Flutter kicks can range from that to almost a scissor kick. The first iteration that I did was closer akin to a scissor kick, but I like going a little bit wider. I feel a little bit more, but especially if you're trying to let it burn long term, keeping it close to the ground is going to be way, way more effective. Okay, we're going to move on to the next exercise, which is going to be some bicycles, okay? Now, when we're doing those bicycles, we want to make sure that our leg is at a 90-degree angle. We don't want to go too high up. If we go too high up, we start to lose a little bit of engagement, and we want to just stay as engaged as possible. Okay, I'm not trying to do anything out of the norm in terms of like trying to keep myself up or anything like that. Same thing applies. You want to make sure that your lower back is a little bit rounded, I would say, because I am doing a little bit of a crunch variation where I'm trying to get my elbows to my knees, right? So as so. Slowing it down there for you. The biggest thing, again, you want to make sure that you're as engaged as possible. We want to get the most out of every single movement that we can. So keeping that core tight, and you want to get that, you want to round that lower back per se a little bit, just so that you can get your upper part of your back off the ground and a little twist action in there. Okay. The next exercise we're gonna do some Russian twists, some basic back to basic stuff, but stuff that doesn't necessarily seem effective at first, but builds and is effective with time, right? So the good part about Russian twist is you're always going to feel it, right? So from the moment you start, you're always going to feel it. And I'm going to put my feet up in more of a vertical position and kind of get a little bit more out of it for myself, because I am a little more advanced than just your beginner. So here we go. Now, as you can see, my feet started coming down there, started to lose a little bit of engagement, started to get tired there. But you could do this exercise with a kettlebell. You could do it with a med ball of the right weight. Okay, I don't like to go anything above 20 pounds. If you go anything above that, honestly, it's a little extra. But if you're skilled enough to where you can, I highly suggest you do. You want to push yourself as hard as you can in the gym for the amount of time that you're there. And if you can get something out of a workout, at least you can work hard. Okay, that's the biggest thing that we want to make sure. Now, when doing the Russian twists, obviously I'm trying to get to side. You can tap. You don't have to tap. I do a little bit of both myself personally. It depends on what I'm trying to get the most out of the movement, right? If I'm trying to really focus on that squeeze and that little bit of twist action, we want to make sure that, again, I'm keeping that core tight, and I'm making sure that I'm not trying to move my legs too much. If those legs are shaking, right? If they're out here shaking like this, if they're rocking from side to side, we want to stop that as much as we can. Now, you can do this a little bit easier to build it, and I suggest that you put your heels on the ground, especially if you're a newbie or a beginner and you're trying to get a little solid of a core. We want to make sure that those heels are out. We want to make our legs a little bit straighter. We want a little bent, not too straight. We're not trying to do a stretch here, right? We're just trying to have a little bent. We want a little bit of a crunch position almost, like if I'm coming up to do a sit-up almost, okay? And from that position, we're just going to do the same thing, but we do it for time. Put those legs together. You don't want them out wide. That's going to make it a little easier for you. You want it harder. You want to keep those feet in together, okay? So it's going to look something like this. And honestly, the twist of this movement is what you're going to really feel the most. So anything to help you get to side a little bit easier, you're going to have a better time at. Once you get your legs off the ground, that's to the point where you're confident, you built it enough, and you progressed it enough to where you can actually start to incorporate a little bit legs off the ground. We don't want to go too crazy with that, though. We don't want to lose control, okay? Like keeping your legs straight up like this in a vertical form is great and all, but if you can't maintain that for 30 seconds or however long that you plan on to do this exercise for, I would suggest that you get those feet a little bit lower, or even put those heels on the ground, because honestly, when I'm going like this, okay, although my core is feeling it, right? When I'm here and my heels are on the ground, I'm going to feel that twist a lot more, okay? So I'm going to feel those intercostals, outer part of the abs. We're going to feel that all trying to move. Let's see here. I would say that concludes a little ab workout today. We don't really need to do too much more. Honestly, I like to stick to 3 to 4 exercises per muscle group. You can honestly do abs twice after leg days. I like to do them after chest days. Anytime that chance to get them in. People neglect abs because they don't believe that it aids in getting them bigger. And as you can see, I don't have the most defined core ever, but it's about strength of your core, right? So even if you are trying to get abs, it is very beneficial for you to actually work your abs. A lot of people don't think that's the case because they think that their abs are being hit secondary in some exercises, which is true. However, if you're trying to grow any type of muscle, you need to focus on that muscle and isolate it, right? Abs are, in fact, made in the kitchen. That is true. You're going to be able to see them at a certain body fat percentage. But in my personal opinion, when it comes to growing, when it comes to showing, we want to make sure that we're showing that muscle. Because if we're growing muscles in our abs, and then we're, let's say, 200 pounds and we got to cut down to 170 to see them, we want to make sure that the next time we do a little bit of a bulk to cut ratio, we're not trying to get down to the same body fat or body weight, I should say. We want to make sure that our body fat percentage is starting to be a little bit leaner at a heavier weight, right? That is a goal in all of bulking, is to be bigger at a heavier weight and also be leaner at a heavier weight when we cut, right? So again, we want to keep that in mind, that abs are going to be made in the kitchen with lean dieting and stuff. Your abs are going to be going away with a bulk. However, you need to be able to work them a little bit so they show a little bit. You're not trying to do anything but grow in the gym unless you have a different goal. But in my case, it's to grow. We want to hit them just a little bit. We don't want to go too crazy in terms of like blowing our abs out of proportion to where we're not going to be able to sit up for a couple of days. But we want to hit them enough to where we feel them a little bit. They're a little warm, a little tense, a little tight. But we don't want to wreck ourselves every single day because of the fact that they are a secondary muscle group to most type of hip hinges or anything that involves some type of straining. A lot of our core is going to be involved in that. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to maximize every single movement that we're doing, whether it's a lat pull down to a squat to a push up to a bench press. We want to make sure that everything that we're doing is for, one, a reasonable, attainable reason for our goals, I should say, and then also making sure that we're doing the right thing for the right time. So if our goal is to get leaner and to, let's say, have abs at a lower percent body fat but at a heavier percent weight, we want to build them up a little bit, and they will come through other exercises as well. However, I choose to focus on them, and it's made my lifts better. It's made my squat bigger. It's made my deadlift bigger. You know, it even attained a little bit on it on my bench so much, but I'm not really focused on growing or strengthening my abs for bench. It's mostly to be able to brace for squat, brace for deadlift, and have a little bit of aesthetic values to them. Now, obviously, I'm not at the leanest body weight right now. I'm around 205. Okay, I'm 6'1". I was a leaner guy growing up, so when it comes to building muscle, it can be a little bit hard for me right now. And I'm 25 years old, so I'm starting to get there where like my hormones are starting to go at a lower rate. We're trying to maximize everything that we can. Okay, so anytime that we work abs in the gym or any muscle group in the gym, we want to make sure that we have laser focus. We do not want to have anything that can actually impede us from doing an exercise. We want to make sure that the amount of exercises we can do in the gym are going to be, we're going to be hitting our goals. Kind of like a target. We don't want to just show up to the gym and hit the outside of the target. We want to hit that bullseye every single time, where that's the goal necessarily. So we don't necessarily want to blast every single muscle group. And I believe, honestly, that's the reason why people sometimes stay away from abs, is because they can take away from some movements due to the soreness of your abs, essentially. Especially if you're not used to working them hard or often. I would say like a lot of people, they neglect that a little bit and they just kind of shove it off to diet and stuff like that. But as a natural guy at 205, I can tell you, if you use your abs and you work your abs, you isolate your abs, you will grow abs. You will. And honestly, like a little bit of dieting is necessary, I should say. I should say. A little bit of dying, but more dieting, I should say. We want to make sure that we're doing a little bit of cardio too. But again, we don't want to just neglect an exercise just because we don't think it matters. If it matters towards your goal, if you're trying to get stronger in a specific lift, especially a hip hinge movement, any ab exercise is going to work. But especially the ones I just showed you, especially the Roman chair leg lifts, especially the bicycles and the Russian twist, all that stuff is going to really aid you to have not only a strong core, a more aesthetic core, and then help you with other movements. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you took something from this video, and I hope that you continue to work hard throughout all your lifts. And again, each fitness person is their own goal. You know, you're trying to make your own goals here. And if there's any way that I can help anybody, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will be happy to help you out. I am a personal trainer for 3 years now, and I do make programs. So please, again, hit me up with a follow, and I'd be happy to help you out. My name is Cameron. And I'm happy to have you here. Bye bye now.